welcome to the Reel Study with your hosts, MrSniDBitS,
I was pleasantly surprised.
BlackGirlMarvel,
I cried laughing. That was hilarious.
TylertheFilmmaker,
it's like so much depth. It's like nowadays it's, you got A shot, B shot.
Allthemoviethings.
There's some great wide shots in this.
JeannineDaBean.
Each other. They just kind of look like they were having fun and doing their own thing.
Produced by Hyena. And me, the Reel Study movie voice guy.
But this was the first time where I got to see it told in a way where I was like, oh man.
Let's go to the poster wall.
Slogans.
Good evening and welcome to the Reel Study. My name is MrSniDBitS, and with me tonight we've got all the movie things, JeannineDaBean, and our guest, that Will Wilkins. BlackGirlMarvel will be joining us here in just a few moments. This evening we are on week 2 of Kevin Smith month. We are going to be doing Chasing Amy and Dogma. Those are, of course, films 3 and 4 in the Viewist universe. And then next week we will continue with more, as you can see. That said, we, of course, want you guys to follow us on all social media, and I'll move us over to the main wall. We are on everything from TikTok to here on YouTube, Instagram, etc. Please follow us on everything. We also have a Patreon if you want to follow us there and even subscribe. We would love that. And we will get right into it. I know that we only have one movie that was watched this week, but 2 people watched it, and we are going to get right into their discussion about Heretic. So, Janine, you said you saw Heretic. What did you think?
I thought it was really good. I was already just excited about this film to see Hugh Grant. I'm a rom-com girl, so to see him delve into something like this was already just very interesting. He did an incredible job. The questions that he raises in this film about religion, it just had you thinking the whole time. Yes, and questioning everything and really understanding where things come from. Why do we believe things? What does it do for us to believe these things? So it just raised a bunch of really interesting questions. Everyone gave great performances. You didn't know where it was going to go, so it was incredibly tense. I really enjoyed this one.
Awesome. And all the movie things, you also saw Heretic this weekend.
Yes.
What'd you think?
Yeah, really great. The basic premise, for those that don't know, it's basically about 2 Mormon missionaries who, are scheduled to meet Hugh Grant's character, and they become a part of this game and this
experiment almost.
Hypothesis. This experiment exactly that he, is just wrong place, wrong time for these 2. And essentially, puts them through this gauntlet of very cerebral kind of game, and this cat and mouse kind of thing of the mind, but then also later on there's some very dark and kind of more twisted horror related stuff that you see. So it's not like a traditional, I guess I would classify this horror, but I think some people
Suspense,
may think it's
maybe
it's like a thriller suspense.
Yeah.
I think some people would may go into think it's gonna be like a slasher kind of Saw kind of thing, but
no, it's very cerebral.
Yeah, no, A24 kind of makes me immediately
always think kind of
they wouldn't accept a script unless it had some little element to it,
but it's still, but it definitely has the twisted nature of it as well, and there's a lot of dialogue in it, but it's written so well, and it really kept you kind of strung you along, in the best way, and the girls in it too, we were discussing, Janine made a good point of there's this good volley between the 2. The girls weren't just hapless.
No, they know
Mormon
they have to
girls,
challenge him.
in
terms of him kind of calling them hypocrites for what they believe, and so they kind of have to challenge that with why they believe what they believe and their history and what they know about their faith and faith in general.
And a good something I really like too, because I have a lot of good friends who are Mormon. I work with a lot of Mormons, and the way they portray the Mormon missionaries, we don't really, we hear a lot of the stuff about Mormons, it's kind of the humorous side, they actually touch on that a little bit in the movie, about like
Yeah.
South Park and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But the way they portray these two missionaries is like very just real people like in this like very terrible situation. And like a buddy of mine, we were talking about it. He is Mormon. He's like one of my best friends, and he's done a missionary. And he was hearing like, yeah, there's a thing with, especially with women more missionaries, like the safety factor is a
Oh
huge
yeah.
deal. So all those
Mhm.
things are very real, very
Having a woman in the
vulnerable.
room. Yeah.
Yeah, and some someone mentioned like watching this movie in Utah as like the 4D experience. So
That's
and,
interesting.
yeah, it was pretty good. But like some people have been triggered by it because of that like safety factor being in
Oh
there. You know? So
yeah.
it's
I bet.
because it's a
Yeah.
real threat.
No, and
for them. So
I totally forgot that in high school I actually considered converting to Mormonism because my best friend was
oh
Mormon.
yeah.
So I actually like sat down and had one of these meetings with missionaries and talked
Oh
about all
yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff. Obviously, I didn't decide to go that way, but I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I was literally considering this.
That's funny.
So yeah, it brought up a lot of kind of those memories of being kind of really associated with all of that.
Yeah.
That's
But it's
interesting.
really good. Like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was one of my more anticipated films of the year, and it's yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, there were no other films that we all caught this week, but that's okay. Unless Will, did you have one? I didn't even ask, and I should have asked. Do you have a film that you watched this week outside of the Kevin Smith films?
Nope.
All right. All right.
Ooh, that's a
that-
good
that was
one.
fast.
Yeah.
Well, that is a
Oh.
good movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a great
Good
movie.
point. Very
Touche.
good point. I don't know why I watched that one at 2 a.m. when I did, but you know.
Oh damn.
That's
Okay.
a good 2 a.m. film, though. That's
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
solid.
Mhm.
yeah.
That'll freak you out. All right. Well, we do have some news that has happened this week with the entertainment industry, and I'm going to bring up a few of those things.
Now it's time for the real news.
All right. So, oh wow, everything is all screwy there. We're going to move back to the main wall and do the news because that's not even worth messing with. So a couple things I noticed. So the Wicked doll for the movie Wicked came out, and apparently the company didn't think twice or think ahead when releasing Wicked.com for their dolls. And if anybody is aware, that is an adult site that has been for forever since the internet existed.
Yeah, before Wicked was a
Right.
Oh my God.
So they put that on these toys,
Oh,
and those
Lord.
toys have not been recalled because yes, you would want to recall
Yeah.
those. So yeah, that happened.
Oh my goodness.
Damn.
Yeah, I thought that was
Next.
interesting. The second one, this is
I
a
got
sad-
fired.
Oh,
Yeah.
Somebody
big
had
time.
to- oh,
Big
somebody-
time.
Big
Yeah.
time.
Well, whoever the research department was didn't
Right?
look like
To look
at
up
the
like
website.
these domain
Yeah.
names and yeah.
Right.
Oh, man.
It
We
shouldn't
gotta
have been
own that,
hard.
right, guys?
It's wild. The next one is we did
or no one
lose-
wanted to admit that they like, knew about it.
That they knew
was
existed.
like,
yeah.
No, don't. You know,
I would never
this
look
won't
at a
happen.
site like that.
yeah. Well,
Well, you only get one. Websites are still only one at a time, so I don't know how they didn't have the proprietary rights to it before putting it on.
I mean, and we got to really move on from the story because let's not talk about the fact that not one of us flinched or we all flinched when we heard this. So
yeah.
next,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
that second
I
story?
know. What?
The
Yeah.
second story is a sad story, and it is that we did lose a horror great this week. Tony
Oh.
Todd, the lead in Candyman and Final Destination, actor of Final Destination, among many, many others, including a remake of the Nightmare or the Night Before
Night of the Living
Night of
Dead.
the Living Dead. Thank you. That was made in the 90s with a lot of great classic horror actors of our generation. He was 69, and I think this has been one of the most devastating weeks on Horror Talk that I've seen. Everybody's just been a wreck since hearing about that, among other things, but we won't go into that here. Third story. This is actually kind of interesting. There's like a ton of Marvel news hitting, which is really interesting. Kevin Feige came out specifically and says that the X-Men are going to play a severely important role after Secret Wars, which isn't that far away. He also then revealed that Miles Morales will be returning to the MCU, or adding himself to the MCU after the final Spider-Verse film. So once that's over, we will get a live action
in another
Miles
decade?
Morales.
Yeah,
I
like
know.
when does that happen?
Well,
They totally
hopefully,
left
hopefully.
us with blue
Right.
balls, and now we're just like stuck
Right.
waiting.
But we shall see. He is confirming that is a goal. They do want to see a live action Miles Morales. And with Tom Holland having his fourth Spider-Man movie happening and starting filming next year, we should see kind of an end to the Tom Holland Spider-Man. And I think Miles will take the mantle. We'll see. The last one is the idea that Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman will likely be returning to the MCU in some facet, whether it be one of the Avengers movies or something. I think Kevin Feige said specifically, the plan with Deadpool and Wolverine will always be the same. We're always wondering where they can fit them in and how fast.
Till they're 90.
Exactly.
Right, he said it. So
Yeah.
nothing gets me. What do you say? Nothing gets me more wet than that Marvel money or something like that.
And a fat bag of Marvel cash.
There it is. There it is. So yeah, therein lies the news for this week.
Actually, one other thing too, if you don't mind me chiming in, is
Sure.
that obviously from my dulcet tones, you can tell I have a certain perspective on life. And that's that I'm very audio oriented, and there's an entertainment tie, but Elwood Edwards this past week died. And if you don't know who that is, well, you're definitely not a kid of the 90s, because he was the one who did the infamous "You've Got Mail."
Oh.
Yeah, so he also passed, which, and by the way, guy got robbed because he had some other profession and dabbled in voice stuff. He auditioned for this, and you can imagine it was just some online tool.
Yeah,
at the
nobody really
time.
knew what that was. Yeah.
AOL wasn't even really the internet. Only got paid $200 for the use of his voice like that.
Oh my god.
Yes, because he also did "You've Got Mail," "Files Done," and "Goodbye." So all three of those were him, which defined the online experience for an entire generation.
Yes.
So that's a bit of a bummer too. Glad I could chime in.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Bummers kind of come in waves. I think we're all writing a lot of bummers right now. So, but that's not what the show is about
right now.
Hey, no, we all got to do what we all got to do. So, I will not be imbibing on the show. But hey,
it's just raspberry lemonade. I know it's in a mason jar, but
so is this.
Yeah,
Raspberry
this is
lemonade.
a sody pop.
That looks. Yeah. I am drinking diet even, so I'm not even getting a sugar high. This is sad, really. All right, so we do have two films that we're going to talk about, and of course, there's a lot to talk about because now we get to expand on not only just the films but the overall universe, which is going to be fun. And had everybody seen Chasing Amy? I know La said she hadn't, and I was really anxious to let her go first because she had said she'd never seen this one, and I really wanted to hear what she had to say. So we'll let her, as soon as she joins, we'll let her jump in. But everybody had already seen it, I assumed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will, I know you have. Okay. Well, Brian, we'll just have Brian go ahead and start with Chasing Amy. What do you think this time around?
Yeah, I've seen this one quite a bit. I saw it, of course, when it first came out. This one, brought a lot of, brings back a lot of memories, just sends me back to that time. Again, I was in high school at this time. I believe at the time I was dating an old, I was 16, 17 or whatever, but I was dating a 19-year-old. And so it was kind of a big deal. I know. So we saw this movie together. And so there's all these things that I'm seeing that's just bringing back all that, the whole thing about him getting, Holden getting so upset about her history and everything like that. And when you're young and immature, that kind of thing, that's kind of a real thing. Yeah. And now, being 44, I'm
that has nothing to do with me. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I don't it's so
why do I need to
dumb.
dwell on something that I wasn't there for?
Yeah. And again, exactly. So it's interesting to watch this, but it is still heartbreaking. There's that heartbreaking element to it. I still really love all the comic book stuff in it. It's so the Tracer stuff. And It's so good.
Poor
I mean,
inkers, dude.
oh
Poor
man, I
inkers.
know. Like, but yeah, and like what Banky says is like perfect. But and one of the things too I love too, because like I again at that time I was like super into comic books, so it was like and Mike Allred, who was like he's the artist that drew Blunt Man and Chronic, but Madman was his like big thing. I have like a Madman #1 signed by Mike. So it's awesome to see like all of his like art in there. You see Madman everywhere. I mean, Banky's
Yeah.
wearing a Madman shirt, and everything. So that was really cool to see. And there's a couple other comic book artists in there, I believe. But a lot of the comic book stuff is fun. I mean, I love the the whole monologue about Star Wars and Darth Vader.
Yeah.
What's the Nubian, this classic stuff. Like, yeah, it's still a good time. It is interesting to see it now, like as far as like the LGBTQ plus community and
Yeah.
seeing, like at the time there's actually an interview with there's actually a documentary, I think, about Chasing Amy that just came out.
Chasing
And
Amy. Yeah.
yeah,
correct.
Chasing Amy. Yes. So
Yeah.
there's I haven't seen it, but it's kind of interesting timing that it came out right around now, so yeah, I still enjoyed it. It is I think important to like kind of pay attention to those. Again, there's like certain phrases used in it that we wouldn't use necessarily
Yeah.
today, of course.
And a character does actually get called out for.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was
This
yeah.
film is addressing that in some way
Yeah.
to a degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but I still really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's classic.
Awesome. Will, what did you think of rewatching Chasing Amy for the 80th? 81st?
It was quite a number of times. It was interesting watching it again when you think about the fact that this was probably a slightly personal tale, because the main character is a flawed character who in the face of everything that he has to confront is actually really dumb. I mean, there's no other way to put it, and makes just phenomenal mistakes along the way. And this was the first movie I watched where I really feel where I was introduced to a flawed character that wasn't really going to grow all that much. Because until the very end, I think when he makes the comic itself, he doesn't really grow. He hasn't learned. He's just stuck in that same type of thinking that he can't get beyond, even to the point where he thinks he comes up with a solution. What will work to fix this?
That's so broadening, but it's still very conservative and putting things in a box and
so
inconsiderate as well, I think.
Exactly. So dumb.
Very
Just
selfish.
so dumb. But other than that, it was interesting to see it through a modern lens again, because like you noted, there are certain elements that are problematic, and it seems friendly to the LGBT plus community, but at the same time it does have the problems of being written by a very straight white male. So there are those elements, but overall it was interesting to look back and see and go through somebody's kind of journey, because if I'm not mistaken, part of the impetus of the film comes from Kevin's own inability to kind of deal with his partner's past experiences, whether it was Joey Lauren Adams, who they started dating during this, or on Mallrats, and I think their relationship actually ended during this movie, and his own experience with a past girlfriend who apparently had, and pardon me for being so abrupt, but had given a hand job to a guy in a car, and that was something he couldn't get beyond, or he was shocked about it, something along those lines. So in a way, he acknowledges his own idiocy about the situation, but at the same time, it's like, do you really feel there's growth from it? But still, it was very interesting to kind of see Kevin Smith's first take at a meet cute in this movie, and really up until a certain point where it just comes out of left field, it is a cute romantic movie that really kind of comes at a different angle and makes you ask questions about people and their relationships in a good way.
Well, and how they label themselves, I would say, to a degree as well.
Until a few left turns happen, and then it's just like, okay, well, so this is not the movie I was watching, and now it's time to open my eyes a little more and widen my perspective. But still, I think it's an amazing movie that was made for, again, another limited budget, but it realistically is kind of his comeback movie as well
Yeah.
after the cinematic flop of Mallrats. Like, I even remember, I don't think I was aware of Chasing Amy. I was aware of Clerks. I was aware of Mallrats. I was not aware of Chasing Amy, and I remember flipping through, of all things, Entertainment Weekly, and they were talking about the critical acclaim for Chasing Amy, Kevin
Yeah.
Smith's, redemption film, I think they even said. And I'm like, oh, holy crap, he made another movie? And then end up going down that rabbit hole. So it was just a very interesting rewatch in this modern day and age, and
Mhm.
in this week, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
but
right.
still, I
Film
still
in
just,
general.
yeah, I do,
Mhm.
and I did enjoy watching it again. It's nice to also see the ways that he has kind of grown since this film as well, even
Yeah.
though you don't really see it as much in Strike Back, but there are definitely, I think, cinematic improvements that are made from the previous films in this one, even though they were working with a tighter budget. And you can kind of, when we get into Dogma, you can see how there's additional growth there. So
Yes.
just a great movie, interesting movie. I think it really showed us, especially at that time in the movies, it showed us a much lighter side of Ben Affleck than we had been used to seeing.
Mhm.
So-
Even in Kevin's films, right? He'd been just kind of
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
Just
Even though
douche.
realistically speaking, Jason Lee stole the movie for
Oh,
me
yeah.
in
Yeah.
many regards.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For how even for all the problems that the character has in the dialogue that's present,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's still that, and plus, who can forget the breakdown of the four corners scene, as I like to think of it. 'Cause
Ben
it
just
doesn't
sat there and
fucking
took
exist.
that, right?
Oh
Mhm.
man.
Right,
So
that's
anyway,
wild.
really good rewatch. It was oddly enough, with everything going on, it was sort of in many ways, it was a balm that kind of helped heal my insides, if you will.
Mhm.
Being
Yeah.
able to think back at a simpler time,
Right. Yeah.
in even with the complex situations in it. So, and again, of
Mhm.
course, then that patented Kevin Smith dialogue was just
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
wonderful to hear again. The banter, and especially the first time I saw this movie, I don't want to say more cinematically ignorant than I am now, but I really was, and I wasn't really looking for things. But the entire battle scar scene comparison,
Yeah.
it's like younger me never would have noticed when I was originally watching this, that whole scene was thematically even an attempt to redress the set in the same way of the scene that inspired it from Jaws. They tried to have portal-like windows behind it, like they're on what's the name of the boat in Jaws? Or the boat in Jaws, is it the Orca?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's they're really trying to go for that tone in that scene as well, and it's so
Yeah.
when that came up, I just got to chuckle again. So yeah, good. I mean, it was a
Right.
good rewatch. It was a good rewatch. It's
Yeah.
still a good movie. Still holds up, even for the the things that we wouldn't really talk about today, kind of stuff.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
my take. That's all I got.
Janine, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, this felt like a fresh watch for me because I had watched it only once a very long time ago. So it was kind of new eyes almost. Again, just really enjoying the dialogue in this film. I love the conversations of, Holden and Alyssa and him kind of putting her in this box and very much being like thinking a certain way about how lesbianism is, and her really challenging him on that and questioning why he thinks the way he thinks. And I think it was probably incredibly educational at the time because I'm sure people all saw lesbianism the same way that Holden did. So for her to kind of counter him and explain that and break it down for him, I thought was really interesting. And yeah, the Jaws-esque scene, I like that as well because Banky also really has this kind of boxed in idea of lesbianism, and then
Yeah.
when they find this kind of sexual common ground between
Mhm.
the two of them, it's really fun that they can understand that it's not,
Connect there, like,
connect,
yeah.
and it's not so
Mhm.
different. So
He
I like that.
broed
Yeah.
out with her, right?
Yeah. I love movies that kind of harken back to the time when conventions were very niche. So like I love watching
Oh,
Galaxy
man.
Quest and at a time
Yeah.
when, conventions were not a thing. So seeing the convention scene in this movie and people
Yeah.
just talking
It's like in
about
a basement of a hotel.
right, and people talking about how weird it is, and
Yeah.
and people in costume, and now it's completely commonplace. So it's always
Why
kind
is
of fun
that guy
to
in pointed
go
ears?
right,
Yeah.
So it's always nice to kind of get in that time machine and go back to
Yeah.
those moments. Like you kind of had that fun look into like the comics. I am a huge collector. Well, I was when I was younger of Betty
Yeah.
and Veronica comics. So when they got into the whole Archie debate, I was so into
Oh,
that.
no.
Where do you come down
funny.
on their
Yeah.
Archie debate?
Archie is totally a horn dog for girls. Like he did so much damage trying to get both of them. Like I've read comic after comic of him just
Funny. Wow.
messing with both of these women. So
All right.
yes, definitely Banky is right on Archie's status.
But it was definitely a way to get under his skin, and it was
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it felt like
Yeah.
that's the only reason he was challenging him, just to like
Yeah.
piss him off.
right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, again, just great dialogue, really great insight. I think, especially for the time in, sexuality and sexual orientation, that people kind of had these misconceptions about. So I loved that this movie was having these conversations. Really great performances, some depth to Ben Affleck, and yeah, Jason Lee again stealing the show. So
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
enjoyed this.
I realized watching 90s movies that I don't know what any of us, were thinking that all men should wear goatees. I think it's select men should wear goatees.
Nice. I was trying to grow one myself.
Oh
You
my
Yeah,
know,
but you look, but you still have this over here, so it's not, but
right. Yeah. Like it's hard.
it just, there's something about that just mid 90s goatee that just makes people look douchey now. They just look
Right.
Yeah.
as soon as we see him in Dogma with no facial hair, I'm like, good, Ben, thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
like, this
Way
wasn't for
better.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Totally.
But
I
yeah,
want to go back to dialogue real quick because like it's
Yeah,
been
sure.
mentioned a couple of times, but some like one thing that I noticed just from Mallrats and Clerks that this one felt like Kevin's dialogue was starting to like become its own thing, but also like it wasn't so much his voice. Like I feel like in Mallrats and Clerks I could hear more of his like similar voice in all the
Yeah.
characters. Where this one where it's starting to get more diverse and he's really starting to like
Sure.
kind of like change those things up, and then we'll see that even more in Dogma.
Yeah.
I think, but
Yeah, I think we hear his voice in Holden. Like that's where we hear him
Yeah.
speaking directly from, and that's like his experience and what he feels. And Banky is not. I don't think that's Kevin. Like I don't get.
yeah, no,
I think that is
Yeah,
people
no.
he's known and people he's
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
from.
Yeah.
And I've known plenty of Bankies. Like I've had my fair share of them in my life.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think that the film, there she is. I think that the film does an amazing job of making him seem like literally any typical guy, but then he has this like kind of base secret, which I absolutely enjoy that part of it, where we get to watch him kind of just for a moment. You're like,
Yeah.
But then we never do get to see the growth from Banky because we only get him one more time in Jay and Silent Bob, which is
yeah.
kind of sad.
Also, another
Lala.
thing too is like
Oh, go
this
ahead.
film is one of the few, like especially like romantic kind of things where we don't really see a happy ending. Like nothing, like they,
Yeah.
we see like a more
Yeah,
realistic.
it's Empire Strikes Back. It's Kevin's Empire
Yeah.
Strikes Back.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Lala, what did you think of Chasing Amy? This was your first viewing.
Yes, it was. Also, hello everybody. I'm sorry I'm a little late.
Yeah.
I apologize.
You're here. That's
But
wonderful.
hello.
That's
you all
usually
look
me.
Wonderful. I know, right? I had to be the Will today. Sorry. But I can see Janine, so that's nice. Hello, Janine.
You can never see
But
me.
I know never.
Right?
My Firefox got updated, so maybe that's it. But anyway, Chasing Amy, this was my first go. Chasing Amy is so Kevin Smith. It's such a Kevin Smith film. And I mean that in the best possible way. It like the dialogue is rich, like it has like such great actors, and it has like callbacks. I love all that type of stuff. I love when it's like a shared universe, or it's like a universe that you can like, because he brought up Brandy's, he brought up Brandy's Finning, and he brought up like, and then she brought up like Shannon Hamilton, like literally talking to Shannon Hamilton. Like it was
Alyssa
just like
is also sisters with the girl that was writing the book in Mallrats.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, so that's it's just such a rich world that I don't even think I still figured out all the other connections. I would probably have to watch it a few times.
I could be mistaken. I should have paid more attention, but I believe one of the women that either Banky or Alyssa is telling the damage stories about is Julie Dwyer, who is the one that passed away in Clerks and Mallrats.
Banky was talking about. Wait, no, I think Alyssa did talk about
one of them. I can't remember whether it was the crank in the neck or.
See, and I love that. I love that. Like, you have to be like in this universe to see it. But I do like that Chasing Amy is kind of like like Cindy said, it's like his Empire Strikes Back. But I also feel like it's like an autobiography of him as a person, and by him I mean Kevin Smith. Because the story that Bob tells is essentially just Kevin Smith talking and being like at the table being honest about like where Chasing Amy essentially came from.
Yes, and not being able to get over those past experiences of his partner.
Right. And I love that because I love that like Ben Affleck's character is such a, like, no offense to the men that's on the panel, no offense, let me just say that first, no offense, but I love that he showed a man, and he showed like a very insecure man. Right. And if you go to Clerks, he shows an insecure man. Like, I can handle my stuff, but I can't handle your stuff. But then on the flip side of that, he showed a woman that's like, that doesn't matter to me. You matter to me. I need me to matter to you, not what I've done in my past. And you don't see very honest writing like that no more. And I mean, like, in that sense, you don't really see honest writing like that anymore. You see like one person's perfect and then the other person has to step up to their level, or one person's terrible and they have to be a better person to come down. Right. You don't get to see that. You see like a person that's kind of flawed and that has learned through it, and then a person who really hasn't been through anything that has to like now feel as though they've missed out on something and want to experience that. So Chasing Amy for me is a film that I'm gonna have to watch like a couple of times, because it's just rich for like an hour and something film. It's just rich, full of things. And I do appreciate Joey Lauren Adams or is it Jory Adams? Lauren, like I think it's Lauren Adams.
Lauren.
But thank you. I appreciate her as a character and as an actress so much in this film, because it could have been written a different way. It could have been written with her complying to his request and going back to being a person that she has evolved and grown from just because she loves this person
him that much.
Right. And I think
it's says, I can't do this because I love you so much, and I don't
exactly, and I don't want to do this. And she's like, I'm not a whore. Because she's like, I'm not a whore, and you don't get to like treat me like one. You don't get to talk to me like one. You don't get to suggest these things just because I've done these things in the past that now you're trying to explore with yourself. And like, you can see two hurt people, because she knew exactly where he was going. That's how much she loved him and knew him. She knew exactly what he was going for. And I think in that moment, she decided what she was going to do, like as he was, because her face was turned away the entire time, like he was talking, because I felt like her brain was moving. And I've been in a situation like that recently where like I've just had to like stare off into the distance to figure out what I need to do for myself as opposed to what I can do for another person. So I think for me, this movie just really, really just like, it's funny. It because Jason Lee is always funny when he opens his mouth. Even when he's saying inappropriate shit, he can be pretty funny. Yes, like I feel like when he breathes, I'm like, that's crazy. The breath he just took. Like I'm just like, he's always funny to me. It's like he's just always funny to me. So to see him be a little bit more vulnerable, especially like in a Kevin Smith film, because he's always like very animated and like high energy and things like that. To see him kind of really come to grips with like am I gay? Is this, I think, like, even though he's not verbally saying it, you can see it in his face that he's like really thinking about this. Like, this is your best friend telling you that, like, we're very close and these things can develop, or these things can be inside. Like, it was just such a, it's for a film that came out in what, like 97, I think, or something like that.
97 is accurate, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, like 97. It's so like ahead of its time, but still in its time at the same time. And I like, and I feel like only Kevin Smith,
weirdly topical. A lot of
right. And I feel like only Kevin Smith can write something that's outside and inside of our time, like just in that way. But yeah, I can talk about this particular film like a lot because it was just, I didn't know what to expect from this film, and I think it was so much that I can't even like fully verbalize, even though I've been verbalizing, but like I feel like I can't even like fully verbalize everything, right? All the things that I'm like feeling about this film, and I think another watch will probably solidify that. But overall, Chasing Amy is a film that I'm happy I didn't watch in 97 because I wouldn't have gotten it at my age. I wouldn't have had that perspective. It wouldn't have, right? Like I could have watched it and been like, oh, dick jokes and farts and da da da. Like there would have been moments where I would have thought it was funny, but I think now at my big age, I'm happy that I've seen it now.
And things resonate.
And can really appreciate like the writing and the direction, because I like the scene with Ben Affleck and Joey when they're in the bed and they're like covered in blue. They're like in all white and like there's like a blue like light over them. It was such a beautiful scene, and essentially her telling him that like she loved him without telling him that she like verbally saying like I love you, right? And I just feel like he's so stupid because it's like this woman been she's been with women for quite some time, but she also explained to you her life and what she's been through with men and all this kind of things.
And finally finding something on her own terms.
Finally finding somebody that like
and totally him disrespecting
right and then you turned around and became everything that she said that she ran from, and I was just like
I want to talk about this, what Janine just brought up, because I think that's the reason, right?
Yes.
Then that's exactly. So I think that not just the immaturity, but the fact that this man thought that getting into a three-way with his best friend was intimacy. He kept talking about it in this intimate way. It's like for her, it would just be
from your other
this
experiences
sexual,
because I love you and I love him, and
right. And I think that this movie is talking about that. It's talking about how men are completely immature and don't understand intimacy at all. And I think that it's also talking about bisexuality before anybody really talked about bisexuality. I think that both, Alyssa, we know is bisexual because she's shown that right through her whole history. But then Banky, I think, is too, because I think he would have gone through it with Holden because he was like, all right. And he would have done it. And then he was relieved, but he still would have gone with girls too. Right. So I think he might be bi as well. So I think that there's, and there's this element that is weird coming from somebody like Kevin Smith, who is a cis white straight male, that ultimately he still nailed down something in the 90s that wasn't talked about really at all, and talked about bisexuality without knowing the word for it, which I think is very interesting.
There's actually an interview he talks about that very thing, like the time, like the time span of like Chasing Amy, of like when it came out, how like young women who are kind of like struggling with that part of their identity really looked up to Joy Lauren Adams' character, but now some find it abrasive, this whole concept of it, so it's a really interesting thing.
I can see them even thinking that depiction of lesbians, like all her lesbian friends just ostracizing her because she is with a man. Like I'm sure lesbians maybe saw that as controversial, that you're depicting us as these like unaccepting people who only see things one way as well. I can see that being an issue as well.
I guess he also attributes Joey Lauren Adams to like a lot of the success of this film. He says without her, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Because I think they were in a relationship during this time or around this time, and like it kind of came birth from her. Like so that's why she's casted and she's a lead, because it's like it's kind of like she was the muse for this film, and you can see it. It's like all over the page. You had something to say, Will?
Oh, I was just gonna say that this movie is the first one that opened my eyes, or my ears, if you will, to being aware of what people are saying. Like to this day, I will, when I'm listening to dialogue and other entertainment, and you're like, oh, what's going on here? The very first thing that pops into my head is, why are we playing the pronoun game?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, why are you tapping?
Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah,
know,
like,
they
The fact that
and
that's the thing now that people talk
I know,
Oh,
like
man.
I didn't even pay
True.
attention to that. Like
Yeah.
then, yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally, yeah.
And
Yeah.
also,
that hit for
I
me
just
too.
got to say, I think this is when you compare Clerks and Mallrats to this movie, I think it's also one of the ones where Kevin is the most thoughtful in the story that he's actually telling. He's finally
Mhm.
gotten beyond of just trying to make a movie,
Right.
and now he's actually really telling
trying to
a
say
story. And I
story,
say that
yeah.
because of certain elements, like the entire tone that's established in the car confessional scene, and the fact that it's a stormy time when this stormy announcement is happening, or when it comes to the big accusatory explosion scene in the hockey game. That whole scene is, everything is building. The action in the hockey game is building
Just
as
parallel
he's
to the,
building,
like,
and you can tell her anger is building because she knows exactly what he's going
yeah.
for.
Oh yeah.
But he's
Mhm.
being this child about it and can't just come out and say it. So
Mhm.
when she explodes, she just drops science right there,
Yeah.
because it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I know what you're getting at, and I'm going to make sure everybody around here knows what you're getting at
Mhm.
too. That's how pissed
And there's
off I am at how immature you are.
And it's like a hockey
Yeah.
fight, you know, those,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
cutting
Right.
back to these
Shouting.
blows, like
Yeah.
That's what.
So
That's why I love that the guy was like, "I told you these were great seats." I was like, yeah.
The final
Amen.
scene,
Like, oh my
the
God.
final scene when Holden gives his explanation for the three-way that he wants to propose is very similar in the build, but it's so much more subtle, and you start to see
Mhm.
everybody getting more and more and more uncomfortable. And I love the timing of the slap, because I think that you're not ready. You think she's just going to walk
Yeah.
away. She's done
No,
the hug.
totally.
She's
So
done
she
everything.
hugs him because she
Closure's
hugs him.
over, right?
Yeah.
And she's about to,
Yeah,
and
she
then
hugs him, and it's
that
she
timing
slaps him.
is magic timing. to me.
Yeah.
It's much like a comic
think that-
timing, but with a dramatic thing. And it's really
Yeah.
Because I
unique
feel like
to
the
see.
writing on both sides for men and women in this film is just written so well. Like it's written so well that I couldn't really be too mad at Holden, because I kind of got it. Like I got it. Like when he was explaining like this will work for everybody because of this and this and because of this and this. And I was like, I can see why your brain would go there. Like I can
Right.
see
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
Right?
insensitive
Like,
to everything she's saying.
No,
and everything
a
she's saying.
1,000%, like 1,000% is sensitive. But I can see why his brain went there
Yeah,
and why he
understand
thought
it.
that would be something that would fix everyone. But it's just like, whoa, you really haven't experienced life.
Yeah.
You
Right.
really haven't experienced like having just normal conversations with women and trying to understand them and learn them. Because it was just like, I felt brokenhearted for Alyssa, because like she explained it beautifully, that she opened herself up to more so that she can have more options in finding a person that that completes her in a way, or that compliments her in a way. And this guy comes out of the blue. You literally get the girl that you want, and you ruin it due to your own like insecurities and your ego as well, because that's ego to be like, well, I need to experience what she did, or I need to do what she did to understand her. And it's just such good writing, because it's simple at its best, because like that happens a lot to people, but with the addition of like sexuality thrown in, that's where it's like where things kind of come up, and it's more interesting, and it's more like you sit up more, you pay attention to more, you listen more.
Yeah. And I love that she
And I
counters
love
all
that.
of the things that could go wrong in that situation.
Oh
that
yeah.
he didn't,
Yeah.
that he didn't even
Yeah.
That
consider.
he didn't think about, because because
Even
those
the
are
worst,
real
right?
because those are real concerns. And I know that there's stories of people that have been like, let's do a threesome, and then afterwards you're like, so did
Yeah.
you were
And
they
then there's,
were
like,
they
an
better than me?
Right.
Were,
Yeah,
were
then
they
that
better than me?
insecurity comes in. Yeah.
Right. Like I thought you didn't like to be touched this way, but you let
You
them
did.
do
You
this.
liked it when he did it.
You
Yeah.
like
It could
you
be-
know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
She makes it complicated, but in reality, especially when it comes to dudes, it just doing it after the fact, you're going to regret it. You don't even have to see any weird thing happen. Nothing has to tweak. Once it's over, most dudes are going to be pretty bent and weird
They're
about
gonna
it.
build
I
a
think
story,
that's what it's saying, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question to ask Law before we move on, because SMODCO still
Yes.
hasn't even talked about the movie, but because this movie is sort of old hat for everyone else, but you got to watch this the first time.
Yeah.
Were you aware that Jay and Silent Bob would make an appearance, and how did you react to it? What did you hit a wall, or were you like, oh my gosh?
Like, whoa,
I know.
you're in it.
Well, I didn't expect them to be in it. I know Bluntman and Chronic is them, but I didn't expect them to be in this film because the tone is different from like other like Mallrats or even like Clerks or Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back or any of these, any of these things we've seen them in. I was like, okay, this is a more like grounded film. So when they're at the table and then you pan to the shoes and it goes up, and I was just like,
Hello.
I was like, what? I was like, what are they going to be doing in this film? And then they did their thing, but I always love when Kevin Smith speaks. Like, I always love when he speaks. So when he speaks as Bob, it's always like, and then they actually played on that, and I thought that was funny. So because up until this point, the film was like kind of heavy. Up until this point, like so much was happening, screaming in the parking lot, and like this montage of all of us being together, but then him and Banksy kind of like breaking away from each other and things like that. So like all this stuff was happening. So to get that levity from two characters that like people love, that was great. And then to have Bob kind of bring it back to being like, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story, because you're me right now, and I need you to realize that you're making a stupid decision based off of you having the lack of emotion to understand what's going on. And it was such a great, because Jay Mules keeps everything like up here, and you're like, what are you gonna say next? What are you gonna do next? And then that's why they complement each other so well, because Bob will bring it down and be like, all right, shut up. So, because all you do is talk.
You're
I get the impression this is Jay and Kevin, though. Not that Kevin doesn't talk, but that Kevin will be like, Jay, man.
I think it's more of a role reversal myself.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. Also, Jay in that scene, too, is hilarious in the way that Bob is talking, and he is just sitting there like eating spoonfuls of sugar.
Yeah.
and a reference that I don't know if you caught, not La, because it's really a timely reference, and one where I really don't expect you've seen it, but when Bob's like, the amount of shit you don't know about me is like, I always wanted to be a dancer. You don't know that, and that's a reference to a horrible movie called Showgirls that also came out.
I love Showgirls, but I don't. Good. But I didn't quite get that reference. But
that was a connection there. But anyway, and amazingly enough, he is literally told he's being dumb. What you're doing is dumb, and he doesn't learn from it. And then
he doubles down. Right.
No.
He takes it and flip it to something even stupider. But go ahead, Snitty. I just thought that was crazy.
In that moment, because I do love the Buick universe. I love all the connections a lot. It's one of my, not that it's my favorite thing, but it's something I really love eating up. And in that moment, where Jay and Bob headed, they're headed to Shermer, Illinois, because they're going to try to figure out how to sell drugs there. And we, of course, literally, he's like prepping for his next film with this, which is beautiful, because he's literally getting them to Dogma, which he knew was being made. Before we get to Dogma, because it's a perfect segue, this is actually interesting, because I think he knew Dogma was coming, because he actually technically penned Dogma before Clerks, but he was like, this will take a budget. Clerks will not. And so Dogma is his oldest piece of work, and yet we don't get it till its fourth installment, which I think is interesting.
He also like, another thing about this film is he kind of refers to it as his umbrella film. In this interview, he talked about like people have kind of like dogged on him about a lot of his other films, but then he's like, but I made Chasing Amy, like, so they kind of like
or Clerks for that matter, like,
right?
Acclaim to them,
I don't know. He's much like a young Mel Brooks, not with as much of the satire, but with the genre jumping. He loves to jump around genres, which not a lot of directors are willing to do. Most directors find a couple and stay in them.
I love that. It makes things interesting, especially if you can blend it well enough. That you can.
Like at the end of the month, we're gonna see these. Very
different Kevin Smith films. Yes,
but I love that. But I love that. I love how he can mix like some hurt with some funny, with some insightfulness, with some like quirkiness, like, but it all makes sense in the scope of the film, and you're never like, well, that came out of why would they? You just don't do that, because it's placed so well into like the next scene, or however
it's like a release valve, right? Like
Yeah.
he finds those comedic timing elements. Like, okay, we've built up a lot of like drama and pressure. I need to like let's go and take it down.
Drain some of this off.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Break.
I think Chasing Amy and Dogma, watching them as a pair, the reason I paired these up, not only are they naturally just 3 and 4 of the grouping, but they're also like a lot of his most thoughtful films. He's put a lot into both of these, where he's talking about relationships and he's talking about faith. And to me, it's interesting because you can, if you watch these films the way we're watching them, I don't think I've ever technically watched them back to back to back to back like this. And watching them, I get to just watch Kevin grow as a person, and it's really interesting to see this one individual grow through his films. You don't see that with most directors. You might see their style grow, or like maybe something they're trying to say, but I'm literally seeing him grow from being just a clerk who was like, oh, I want to make movies, to, man, this relationship shit sucks, to, man, I question myself all the time, all the way up to, you know, the horrors of Tusk, but we will get to that. Or even Clerks 3, you know, which is poignant in his life in so many ways. Or Reboot, which if you have not already seen, Will Wilkins down here is in Reboot. You guys have to go try to find him in it.
It's true.
Nice.
It is true.
I'll have to check that out.
But yeah, I think it's interesting. This is one of the reasons I love him as a filmmaker, is that he you can sink your teeth into his work because there's so much of him in that. I'm not sinking my teeth into him. Anyway, yeah, sorry. Why don't we rate, and then we can move on to Dogma. Let's start with Law.
I give Chasing Amy a solid 8.5. Solid 8.5. I will watch this. I'll add this to my Kevin Smith watches for sure. Yeah.
I love it. All the movie things.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 8.5 also. I'm not gonna copy Janine. Sorry, I'm gonna copy
I do try to mix it up so
you went
nobody
first.
ever...
I know it's only because I went first.
How about you, Janine?
Like I said, I'm gonna copy Brian and say
8.5.
8.5. But they're all copying me, so it's fine.
When I watched it in the 90s, I would have given it a 9 out of 10. Now I would give it a 7 out of 10. And the only reason why is because there are just some things that don't translate well now. So I'm hearing weird noises somewhere, and I don't know why they're happening around. I think they're happening on my end. I apologize. But anyway, it's so that's the only reason why I would kind of downgrade it. And plus, you know, it was a movie that had it could have been a little bit, it could have looked a little bit better if it had more of a budget, but given the circumstances it was made under, then you know, you got to be happy with what you get. So
that's a good point.
and you know, it's social commentaries at the time that even translate now. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but yeah, we'll say 9 out of 10 then, 7 out of 10 now.
Yeah. All right. So somewhere in the middle, it was an 8. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, at some point. I actually didn't mention that, so I will before I give the rating, but I did notice he did go back to a more Clerks style approach with his camera work. A lot of simple shots, very stagnant. What I did also notice is that he had a lot of shots where, let me see if I can do this right, where he had everybody like this, like right up against the edge of the frame, which I thought was really interesting, rather than having them back here, which is what you traditionally see. Which is, you know, hey, stylistic choice. So yeah, I actually give this an 8 out of 10. I like this movie. It builds out the universe. It gives us a good story that I think everybody should learn young, as quickly as you can, that you need to not be insecure and try to find yourself your own way. I think that's a good message. All right, let's move on to Dogma. Law, you had seen Dogma before, yes? Okay. So let's start with Janine with Dogma.
I absolutely love this movie from the first time I saw it. Like, I've had a very complicated relationship with religion. So giving this kind of comedic context to it made me feel more comfortable about kind of thinking about those types of things. I just love the story crafted around these kind of typical religious elements. It's not really kind of judging any one of them. It's kind of saying they're all kind of silly in a lot of ways. So the comedy aspects are really great. Like Ben and Matt are amazing in this movie. Like them at their finest. Jason Lee again great as well. Just this seeing the regular staples in this kind
Yeah,
of vein
right.
is so much fun. George Carlin, oh, I miss him so much.
Yeah.
Like the moments where he pops in the Catholicism, wow, and Buddy Christ,
Kind of
and
genius, like
yes,
casting him as
right.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah, you're taking like the atheist and making him a Catholic
Right,
priest, which
exactly.
is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I love the
Yeah.
irony of that.
Mhm.
Just the really smart, funny conversations around religions, and
Mhm.
ultimately coming to the final point that it's not so much like what you believe, it's just that you believe in general, so that
Mhm.
we're not leaving anyone out. So even as an atheist, you believe in something, whether it's, anything religious or not. So I like that we kind of come to a positive, uh inclusionary kind of message by the end of all the craziness that happens. But I always just thought it was such a smart way to tackle some really serious things. And I love that. I think
Mhm.
he felt like he was definitely going to need this disclaimer at the beginning because people
Oh
would
my God,
probably
yeah.
take things the wrong way. I know he talks
That's
about
really
getting
good. Yeah, I
letters.
love that.
I've seen that interview that
Yeah.
he does. Talking about how
Yeah.
this movie is
Oh my
hateful and
God.
terrible and it's his movie and the interviewer doesn't know
Right.
that it's him. Um,
Didn't he
so
call him
It's
what
that's
was his
Brian
name? It was Brian
Johnson.
Johnson.
Okay,
Yeah,
Brian
I know.
Brian
Johnson.
Johnson. Yeah.
That's right.
yeah, so I think people were probably going to go into this movie with some type of feelings about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that he is able to kind of quell those as you watch the movie and just see how silly it is, but also find some profound, interesting things in there. So I absolutely love this movie.
All right. Will Wilkins, tell us what you think about Dogma.
It is the movie that is the scariest thinker that I think he ever put out, because it really did a lot to make you question organized religion as a whole, the problems of people's dedication to religion. The entire crisis in the movie is predicated around the entrapments of religion by religion itself, if you think about it,
Yeah,
because
and
it's like
control and that kind of thing.
all of reality can be undone because
Right.
it could somebody found a loophole in God's law, essentially. So
Yeah.
it also it's such an amazing balance of comedy yet thought that just
Yeah.
and so many great performances. Unfortunately for
Right.
me with this movie, there's so many parts that stick out, that stick in my mind, that aren't relevant to the plot
The
at
boardroom
all.
scene is so good.
The boardroom scene is amazing, and the
Yeah.
fact that all the bad stuff happens off camera, that was actually because of budgetary
Budget,
and
but
because
it
of
works.
time.
It
Yeah,
plays
it
perfectly. You
plays
don't need
out
to see
perfectly.
it. Yeah, just seeing the splatter is enough to kind of know.
And for those that don't know, I think recently Kevin opened up his own publishing company under the umbrella of another one. I should be far more well versed in explaining this, but in that there was a very disturbing, I think, 3-part comic series about the origination of movie The Golden Calf. And so, like, your own son, you sick F, that story gets told. So like all of these things, and apparently
Wow.
movie The
Okay.
Golden Calf is also originates in very problematic circumstances. So that part of the story is continued and out there as well. But bringing it
Interesting.
back in, I love Matt Damon's energy as Loki in this movie. And all of these takes on religion that just break my mind, like the whole Alice in Wonderland walrus being
Oh yeah.
a
He
false
just
prophet.
believes, like,
Yeah, and by the way,
as we're
too,
questioning her whole faith on this story.
so much so that later on you see her in the background holding a beer and dancing, like she's holding up almost her
She
beer.
already
I
just
missed
gave
that?
up. Yeah.
Yeah, literally that happens. I think when they're on the moving escalator and they're discussing it. But I also love that there's just little elements that show that other parts of the story are being considered, because like in the very beginning when Matt Damon and Affleck are together, he says, I got this letter, and he's like, who or who sent the
letter?
paper? He's like, who
Right.
cares who sent the paper? Because
Right.
you should be questioning that. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is keying us into this, and why are we doing this?
What are
But
their
at the same,
motivations? Yeah.
yeah, but again, it was just, for me, it was a great movie in regards to the careful balance of the questioning of religion, which is what, I mean, the whole movie is about Kevin's own questioning about his religious upbringing and dealing with it now as an adult. And this whole movie kind of addresses that, and a good comedic balance and an amazing cast. It's also the movie that for me, this one, I hold a little place in my heart for it, because this is the one where I first kind of got introduced to Kevin Smith's orbit because of this movie. At the time, I was what we would call a content creator now, but at the end of the 90s, nobody knew what the hell to call it. And I was doing a daily program from my garage for a company called Play TV. And as usual, as what I do in life, I'm like, okay, well, how can I leverage this for things I want? And at the time, there was going to be a benefit screening of Dogma before its release in Jersey. It was the Dogma Diabetes Association benefit screening. And so I got the company to fly me to that because I used our stats, which the audience wasn't there, but we could have had up to 10,000 streams, and online was so new. I got to take part in a roundtable interview session with Kevin for this as well, and like produced my first real piece of almost journalistic content, because it was the content of the interview plus my tour stuff involved. So I always think of this movie very fondly as well.
Yeah.
That all comes off as humble brag. I apologize, but that's for me, there's a lot of emotion tied into this movie, and it's the one I've seen, I think, the most because
me
of
too.
that. But yeah, it's just it's very interesting as well that it once again features very strong female players, or female characters, but at the same time still has that problematic element of objectification, which they instantly flip though in the movie. It's herself that Persephone is doing this, but she, one, obviously wouldn't ever close the deal for anyone, and two, is using all of this just to her advantage. So that was an interesting twist too. But still, a big thinker of a movie that I don't think anyone kind of expected to come out of Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. La, what did you think of Dogma this time around? Can La hear me?
My mute was being weird. I can hear you. My mute
Okay.
was, because I was muting myself. Just in respect of everybody talking. But I'm still obsessed. Okay, I'm still obsessed. I still love this film. As a person who has been in church like since I could probably not even remember, if as a person who wants to make a film when I was younger, being surrounded by religion, this is probably the type of religious film I would make, because it's not so much, because I know like when he released this, it was like, Catholic protest and Catholic Church was like, this is blasphemous and this is these things like that, right? But for me, I didn't see the blasphemy, right? I mean, I can see how it can be taken as such. I truly do. But I saw somebody that studied their religion, knows their religion, and questioned their religion, right?
Yeah.
And I don't see anything wrong with that. And to see some of these things is kind of turned on its head in a very smart way, in a comical way, in a very serious way at times, was such a great, like, informative film for me when I was a kid. And and for me, it just hits even better as an adult, because you can kind of see yourself in some of these people, like, and even with my brain, just thinking about angels and things like that. That's why they're not just like here for all time. Like, they're just not like just here, because I do believe in angels. I do believe, because I can't believe in one without believing in the other. So like, I do believe in angels. I do believe they exist, but I do believe that if they were on earth, like how Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's characters were on Earth, they would exact justice in the exact same way because we're inundated with all of this. Like we're inundated with like sinful nature. We see it every day. We breathe it. We're all like happening all around us. We're all sinful people, but that doesn't automatically make you a bad person, right? Like depending on what it is, because like you gonna shoot that girl for not saying bless you. Like that's like
you're getting off light.
Old Testament wrath of God type shit, right?
Right. So it's very much like how far is too far, how little is too little, and I think like this film has a great balance of that because Bethany is us. Bethany is the character that's like, I go to church. I say my prayers.
He gets called out for more, and kind of just going through the
I just going through the motions of it. This is what I do. And like, I've been that person. I've known people like that. Like, and even with like, even stripping the religion away, to me, that's just life. Like, all right, I got to get up. I'm about to brush my teeth. I'm about to go to work. Yeah. I don't have anything else but this. And like, I feel unfulfilled in some type of way. And for her to realize that like, even she can have a bigger destiny than which she thought for herself. To me, that's a story and like a prophecy for everybody in a way to know that you might not be the last scion, right? But you're also like as important as anybody else that you think is more important than you. That you do have a purpose on this earth that goes beyond what your limited brain can think of, right? And for me, that just gave me like a little hope towards my own future because I'm always inside my head. I'm always thinking of like, well, why don't I have this or why aren't I here, and not realizing what I have in that moment. And we can also talk about how funny it is. It's hilarious. It challenges a lot of things. Like, and I feel like
fucking demon. Sorry, one of my favorite lines
like for real. And like, and I feel like, because I'm not sure it's a possibility. I gotta look into it, but what is it, like the shit demon also pops up. Also pops up in Justice League Dark as well. Very similar. So if you've ever seen Justice League Dark, there is a shit demon, or however you want to name the demon, but there is one. And anytime I watch Justice League Dark, it automatically makes me think of Dogma.
I think he called him an excremental is what they call him.
Yes, an excremental. Yeah. and honestly, I feel like every character was cast great. Like Alan Rickman is just Alan Rickman.
Yes, it's so great.
Amazing. May he rest in peace.
I think frustrated and annoyed.
He's amazing. Always, it's just like, fine. Like, type of thing. Like, okay, let's get to it. Like Chris Rock, even though I'm not a huge fan of Chris Rock, like his comedy, but I enjoyed him in this.
He's so great in this.
Yeah. He was, Rufus being like the 13th disciple is hilarious. Like, Jay and Silent Bob always have their place in these films, and I love that he finds a place for them. I just think it's great, and I also love that like every now and again, God comes down. He want to play some skee ball. Like I don't see like
I know
nothing wrong with that.
You telling me that a being that created an omniscient being that created this entire world and the people that's in it, which is in a way created skee ball, wouldn't like skee ball?
Yeah, just
wanted to chill created himself. He's like, look what they made. I gotta go check this out. And then he became addicted, right?
No, but I'm saying he created it by proxy.
It just speaks to the the universal appeal of skee
ball.
Right?
Exactly. And I love that. And I love that it's just like God wanting to come down and hang out and play a game, eat a coney, and like and I don't know. It was just written in a way that was just like I could see God doing that.
I could see this happening. Yeah.
It might not have been skee ball. Maybe he liked the little erasers. We don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
you never know. But I'm like, I can see that. I can see like, all right, let me come down and go. Let me grab. I'm in Detroit. Let me get some coney. Let me get some coney while I'm here. Type of thing. And so I love the mix of fun. I love the mix of serious. I love the mix of like them mixing together, because I feel like religion can be taken so seriously.
Oh yeah.
So many times, like it can be taken so seriously.
It's like they talk about in the film of like wars are
are forged over this, and it's like and it's like, and I really feel like, for me personally, this is maybe I'm being naive, but I really feel like religion was was created for a sense of community, of bringing people together, but because it gets in the hands of people, it gets warped to be something that it wasn't intentionally intent to be. And even with even with the Bible, it's been in so many different hands, translated in so many different ways, that the meaning that it has been lost throughout the generations, unless you can find, like, unless you know Hebrew and can read Hebrew and all that type of stuff. But like, I
interpretations can be just
all over the place. To challenge that, to me, is in a way being a great disciple. And to take that and say that it's blasphemous, I don't like it.
But I want to plug a TikToker just for everyone. If you don't follow or watch Dan McClellan, he is an author and scholar, or not an author, he's a scholar and a philosophy major about the Bible, and he will break it down for you very, very detailed. I absolutely 100%. Dan McClellan. Love the guy. He's very, very just forward about what he knows, and he's gone through years of school. Love that. Anyway,
watching this the same week as Heretic is it's very strange.
It's
very wild.
I was thinking a lot of religious.
All the movie things. What do you think about Dogma?
This is like one of my favorites. I also love, just like, again, this is like a great evolutionary jump in his filmmaking, in his storytelling, and like I had mentioned before, like we see a little more, a lot more diversity in his dialogue, and that we're seeing like less and less of like his voice, in it. So I mean, it's definitely there. Like we see Jay and Silent Bob as that element. But another thing of like, he wants to like say something, and talk about some serious-ish topics. And I just love he gets to play a lot with this. I mean, with the shit monster and in general, like there's a lot of creature effects in this, like he's done a lot more other kind of effects that actually kind of still stand up. And I love just like, I mean, there's things like that I had no clue about, as far as like the whole, like where they use the word mythology, and like one of them hates when they use the word mythology, but just like a lot of those elements of, biblical history that I didn't know, and just religion in general. And these two, you hear Loki, and you don't think of, you think of like Norse mythology of, a Loki character, obviously, but there's so many different things that like I think he like taught me a lot about, and again, this was like 1999, I think, when this came out. And so I was like a 19-year-old kid, who wasn't very religious. I grew up like Lutheran, and but I get like those church scenes are very like resonate a lot, where you're just kind of going through the motions.
You're not
just
really
like, I'm just gonna,
you're just there to
this
be
is
there.
what I do
That's
on
what we're
Sundays.
supposed to do.
It's just like, I mean, the cast is like insane. I mean, like I totally forgot Selma Hayek was in it. I'm like, oh my god, Selma Hayek said this. I forgot. I mean, and we get to see
the Muse.
The Muse, and we get to see why am I forgetting?
Alanis Morissette.
No, Alanis Morissette, yes, but
Chris Rock.
Yep, he's in it too. No, no,
Janeane Garofalo.
No, from the original. So Dante from Clerks, basically.
As the
Brian O'Halloran.
Brian O'Halloran. Yes, we see.
Well, he's
him,
actually playing another
Hicks. He's another
right?
Hicks.
Grant
yes,
Hicks.
exactly.
I'm Grant Hicks.
So we get to see that.
But we get to see Jeff Anderson listen to Two Angels talk about what it was like raining sulfur down on folks.
Sulfur down. I know.
It's one of my favorite George Carlin like moments. He's great in this. So he's hilarious.
He really is.
Again, another element of this film too is like the history of like the distribution, of course, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit here and there, and how we're finally gonna get Dogma in 4K, I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a 4K
Fingers
guy,
crossed, man.
so
I would
Steelbook.
snatch that in a
We're
heartbeat.
talking
Kevin
box
Smith
set.
signed a
Got it in
copy that I
720.
cherished.
Yeah, look at that.
I got it in 720.
Whoa.
720p.
I had that one.
Woo.
I had 2 different versions of Dogma, I think, and somehow in my move from Southern California back up to Northern California, both of them disappeared.
Yeah, mine disappeared
wow.
too. I had a DVD. I
What?
opened the case and it just wasn't in there. So then my
Oh.
friend bought me this Blu-ray DVD
Oh,
set that
wow.
was signed by Kevin Smith. So
Nice. Oh my
prized
God.
possession.
Keep that.
I think they
There's
just
some
Yeah.
dark
evaporated.
stuff in this.
Yeah,
They
so I
just
have an empty
evaporated and
Dogma
disappeared.
case. And
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
I don't know. Yeah, it
As soon as
literally
Harvey got
jumped
the
out.
rights to it, everyone's
just-
copies
You're right.
disappeared.
It just like it just disappeared, just faded.
That has been
They-
a
they all go
strange
to-
thing for me.
They all go to Wisconsin.
Right.
Watching everything for the last
Yeah.
2 weeks,
Buried with
watching
all the
all the
ET
behind the
games.
scenes, all the different stuff. Harvey's name is brought up so many
Oh, yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Well,
And
yeah,
I'm just
because
like, oh man.
he bought the
No.
movie personally because Disney
Yeah,
was like, "Hey,
exactly.
Miramax, this is too problematic for us." And what's interesting too, as I understand it, which believe it or not isn't very much, but apparently now the movie was basically just sold in a catalog with a bunch of other random movies, and that's how it's gotten out of the Weinstein hands, like
Interesting.
including a bunch of
Wow.
like kung fu movies and stuff. I don't
I mean,
What the
put it in with
heck?
whatever you got to do to get it out.
Yeah.
exactly
Right.
right.
Sneak it
To, like,
away.
get it out
Yeah.
there.
I
No,
did
facts.
manage to
Cover.
track this down some years ago, which is the Chasing Dogma comic, which I think
Oh
is-
yeah, I have that.
yeah,
which-
it's a
which-
Very
trade.
nice.
It's a
Yeah.
very interesting read, especially after you see Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, because you're like, hey, wait a second. There's a few. Well, there's this because the Suzanne the monkey is a part of that,
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
3-issue comic that you're talking, because that's
Mhm.
that's basically that it gets you from it's Jay and Silent Bob's adventures from Chasing Amy to Dogma, including a
Mhm.
confrontation with Mr. Rogers. I mean, it's got everything, kids.
Wait.
Got everything.
Wait a
And it's
second.
technically
I know. And
the
look, man, you
first
got to
time
read the
we
whole
get to
book.
you get to see movies in the comic book before it shows up
Yeah.
in the Dogma
Mhm.
movie. And of
Yeah.
course, movies is like, synonymous with Kevin Smith at this
Now
point.
it's
But,
with Clerks
but
and everything.
Dogma, the eggy movie muffin, was, and I thought it was clever the way he took so many corporations and just shoved them
Yeah.
into one conglomeration. Because it wasn't just a conversation about religion; it was also a conversation about
Mhm.
capitalism
Yeah.
and how that leads to
Being the
things.
golden calf. and- yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, at least the first time I saw this movie, I'm like, Golden Calf. Oh, that's Mickey Mouse. Like, there's not even a question. It
Yeah.
was 100% Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Um,
I just felt like it was a representation of anything that people idolize.
yeah,
whether
yeah,
that's
and of course,
Disney,
it goes
whether
back to
that's,
the early
And
Bible.
they talk about
like
the
everything.
false idols.
Yeah.
right, false idols and things like that. So
Yeah, and it's genius for that reason because he's cute. Like, he's super cute.
Right.
Like,
How could that be
Why
problematic?
I
wouldn't you
mean,
love-
but that's how the devil's supposed to show up too. Super cute,
right?
super cute
Yeah.
and charming, baby.
I love the
sorry,
like
go ahead.
one of the like my favorite lines in it was like I think it was Alan Rickman said it, talking about the voice of God. He's like, we had to go through
Mhm.
5 Adams before we
Before
realized
we realized it was a boy.
Yeah.
Couldn't handle it. Yeah.
yeah.
Then he goes on to say, he's like, whenever some Yahoo is saying they're speaking to God, they're speaking to me.
Yeah,
or they're
yeah.
speaking to themselves, right? Which
But
But
I
I,
Right.
honestly,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's genius to have the voice of God be Alan Rickman.
I know. Yeah,
Just-
Alan Rickman's like
Yes.
the interpreter.
That's
like, yeah.
just like I love that
I
so
love it.
much because
Yes.
his voice is so like
so good.
yum to me. I just love Alan Rickman's
Mhm.
voice. So
Yeah.
No,
That's
I
just
damn
great.
near took a bullet when I was watching this with my surrogate little brother who's like mid-20s, and he said, "Who is Alanis Morissette?" And I was just
oh,
Oh,
Get out.
mm,
Get out
Yeah.
now.
wait a
I know.
second. I love that. I love that Alanis does not speak
Yeah.
in this
Besides the-
film because Metatron is her voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I just love that everything's like a
well, no, she
and
does speak
she's so cute.
once.
Yeah. She's so
does
cute
speak
though
once,
too. Her
yeah.
little outfit. I want the outfit to cosplay.
Right?
As,
But which
Right,
one? The one
as
she comes out of
God.
the doors with, or the one she tears
Yeah.
off into?
No, the one she tears off into.
Tears off into the
Okay.
silver.
Yeah, the silver.
The
'Cause
like
it's so
perfect for
cute.
frolicking
Like
outfit.
flannel
Yes.
boxers.
The flip flops.
She just,
Yeah.
right.
Flip-flops.
And she just be in the, and she just be like in the, like in the grass and just like skipping around.
Enjoying
And it's like, and it's so
handstands and,
funny.
yeah, falling
And then it's
down.
like,
Yeah, it's
because just like all this blood everywhere, and then finally she's just like, let me clean it up real quick. All right, now it's beautiful again. Like it's just, I think it's Kevin Smith. I want to shake your hand, man. That is such a great film. Such a
On
great
the fact that we go back and forth between he and her, like how they refer to God, all
Mhm.
constantly in the movie. It's a he
Yeah.
or it's a her. It's a he.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love that.
As it should be,
I love
because
it.
a god
Right.
wouldn't necessarily have
Right. Have it.
because like
Yeah.
God
Gender,
wouldn't,
bits,
right?
if you will.
Right.
Right.
My first experience with this film was in the theater. At this point, I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, I'll watch this guy's movies.
Right.
And just watching, I think more, I love watching the evenings with after the fact so
Yeah.
much because you
Yeah,
get
those are so good.
so many of the great behind the scenes. And when he talked
Mhm.
about being, a protester at his own film, that
So
is
very
it's
good.
genius. Like that is like unfettered genius to
Mhm.
actually protest. You're like, come on, nobody.
It was like a viral marketing campaign before that was even a
Yeah, it
thing.
was even a
Right.
thing.
Like,
Yeah.
Right.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's just I would have I don't know, the fact that Brian was over there with him. I don't know if Walt was there, but I would assume he was there. I
Right.
assume they were all there, just
Right.
with their signs.
Yeah.
But everything he talks about that leads ultimately to kind of him writing Red State with the Westboro Baptist Church and everything kind of starts with his controversy with the Catholic Church and Dogma, and they also catch wind of it, and it gets wild, like because they actually start sending people to like his like showings, and like he ends up talking to them. Like you guys should watch the
Oh my God.
I think it's the Three Evening that he goes into that the most.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look
But
into
it's pretty wild how his outside life continually, you can see
Yeah.
how what's happening in his life influences the next film and the next film and so on. I think when he
Which
made
is
the
probably
430
why a lot
movie,
of
he
people
was
like
like, "Oh,
them.
Clerks is
They can
over. I'm
relate.
feeling sentimental. I need to go back and make something about my
Yeah.
childhood again."
Yeah.
Right.
Nostalgia, if you will. So this film it's solid. It still works. It's still funny. It's still poignant.
Mhm.
I'm a fan of the idea of a shit demon. I think that's a beautiful thing that should have been put on screen. So I'm thank him for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And how Bob
Which
defeats
by
it
the
is
way,
just great.
I know. Yeah.
when you get into the behind the scenes stuff, the shape of the Golgothan is directly an inverse of the shape of Clayface from the Batman the Animated Cartoon.
Oh,
Interesting.
sweet. Yeah.
See, I
That
thought
makes
he looked
sense.
like Silent Bob reversed from Mallrats because he had the little ears, right? So he
Yeah,
kind of looks
right.
like Bob. But no, that's interesting that he would be Clayface.
Yeah. Knocks out strong orders.
Yeah, see, that's where that was when he came out with Silent Bob or Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. I was like, you know what? Like, this makes sense to me. Dogma was already starting to lean into a lot of that kind of slapsticky style humor with the bar fight scene, and I also love that if you work with Kevin, you can tell they got along with you because you'll be back in his next movie. If not, you aren't ever in another one of his films.
Ouch.
Cause shout out to Ethan.
I mean, but that's true.
Suplee,
Like there are
'cause,
actors he's even talked
Bro-
about, like
Bro
Linda
was just coming back,
Florentino.
man.
Like he was like, they didn't talk forever because they did not get along, and they just made the movie together. So while everybody else, George comes back
Pops
for
up. Yeah.
a scene in the next movie. We'll talk about later. But yeah, no,
I think
this
Pop
is
Out was like
the
kind of
road.
the same thing too, right?
what do you mean?
Oh yeah, Cop Out being like this really
Cop Out, like
tumultuous
yeah, like
experience.
exactly.
yes.
I heard like he
Yes.
had a like
Because he worked with him on Die Hard with Event or Die Hard, Live Free or Die Hard.
Die Hard,
and
yeah,
he
he
was
was
like,
in that
hey,
movie.
maybe I can work with my hero, not hero, but like a guy he admired from his childhood,
Yes. And,
Bruce Willis. And then it turns out he's kind of a dick.
Yeah,
And
don't meet your
Yeah.
heroes. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you should meet them, and then it'll help you assess that maybe you're just all human, and
Right.
it is what it is.
After we're done and you're talking, remind me of this moment, please.
Okay.
I'll just say
About
that.
meeting your
Nice.
heroes. Okay, we will remind you.
Nice.
I know the controversy around this film is tremendous, but to me, like that's a duh. Like, put controversy out there, you're gonna sell. Like, it'll sell because people will be like, I gotta go see
Oh,
this
I
movie
need to
now.
see this. I need to see how
Right.
crazy it is. Yeah.
And honestly, in its own like fantastical weird way, it could actually bring a person to religion. Like, in a way, because it can make you interested in like, well, what's Catholicism all about? Like, what is, like, because you have to have some type of I'm not saying you have to, but it's better to, I guess I could say, to have a little bit more understanding of basic religion, or like whatever, angels, demons, however you want to look at it, because it gives you more, it's like more meat for the film. But it might bring people to Catholicism and be like, okay, what is this about? And you can't control how a person looks at it. And it's like, I can get into this. I can let me go
it
deeper
broke it
into
down
this.
to a way that makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
if I was
it could
potentially going to see
easily
a shit
lead.
demon every once in a while, then yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm
Sign me
saying.
up.
I'm saying.
I'm gonna need
You know how to
clothespins.
defeat it, so
if that's gonna happen. No, that's a good point,
Wear a
Law,
mask.
because just blocking the door and saying nobody can come in unless it's through this particular keyhole really limits the scope of what people see.
Yeah.
And that can create a bottleneck of belief, if you will, that some people just don't have the patience or the understanding to get through that. And if there's something that just opens the door for them,
right,
absolutely, like they
Yeah.
can
But
they
with
can
something
find
that's
new
more
ways.
digestible,
Yeah,
definitely can.
100%.
For sure.
It didn't turn me, but it also didn't turn Kevin away. Let's be clear, he's still Catholic. So
Right.
like, you know, but I love anything that, well, I mean, he's, you know, he claims to still be Catholic, you know. But I think anything that makes people think is a good thing. Anything that can make us just wonder further. It doesn't have to be that we have the right answers, just that we
like
wonder
shift
further.
the perspective, and
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, if
I
it's not
love
our own.
films
Power of
that
film.
I love films that make me want to learn more, like films or plays and things like that, that makes me want to learn more about what they're talking about, especially if I don't have like a foundation for it or a basis for it, or I'm like, hey, I've always been interested in this or that or whatever. That's why I feel like film doesn't always have to be that way, because like, what's the
Right.
fun in that? But but it's nice when it is, because you don't, films give you a view into another world, and if you aren't from that world or from that experience or whatever, or from that community, a film can open that door for you. And if you can walk through it and watch it, and then maybe you can go through another door and be like, well, let me go learn about this side of a
We're gonna start talking about the
community or
Matrix
thought,
and the
or
back doors. I'm sorry.
I mean, we can,
That's kind of
because
what
I
you're
feel like
getting
we're
at.
all living in one, but you know, that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
Talk about that heretic.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna find the architect and I'm gonna hobble that mother. Sorry.
Yeah, right. No, needs to be.
Don't worry, I'll
Capped.
join you, Will. I'll join you.
I appreciate it.
Any other thoughts on Dogma that you guys would like to bring up?
I need Kevin Smith to have it all so we can have
Buddy Christ. Wait, so he's pointing and
pointing and thumbs up. Yeah,
Thumbs up. Yeah.
And
Winking as well.
And winking. That's right. He's got it all. He's like,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's too much. But he's looking clean. I love the robes. They're looking really nice.
Yeah, looking bright,
really
poppy.
flowy.
Yeah. You don't want it to give you the willies.
A little more approachable. Yeah.
But okay, I'll say this and I'll be done. But I also feel like Dogma is like, as much as it talks about like Catholicism and like religion and like gaps and what's missing and things like that, it also shows how people can take religion and make it their own thing, that of what it wasn't. And I think, and I love that. I love how Kevin Smith writes, because it's all encompassing. He's never writing like it's all of this thing's fault and nothing on this side. It's like everything has a weird, it has a part to play in all of this. And I think it's very rare to have a writer and a director, because usually if you wrote and direct something, the movie kind of comes out very amazing, because like you wrote it, so you can see, you have the vision of having to see what you're trying to put on screen. But for Kevin Smith, I just feel like he really thinks about what he writes, and if he doesn't think about what he writes, you're amazing. I just want to talk to you about it, because I really feel like just from the scope of his films, even from like, you know, Clerks to Tux to Red State to like anything that he's written and directed, it always feels as though like there's a lot of thought and attention in everything he writes, even at a
Mhm.
at a financially like lower level. And as he kept growing financially with the films that he's producing, it just gets better and better in my eyes. Even if it's still weirder and weirder, but but to me it just gets better and better because he explores, he tries different things, and he also writes from an experience that I think all of us can like relate to, which is why his films have such a like cult following and people enjoy his films, because you could like sit back and be like, I could have wrote that, but I couldn't have wrote that. You know what I mean?
Right?
like I could.
He
I
makes
could
it
do
look
that.
he makes it look easy.
Right, but it's like, but then if you really
No.
look at it, he's like, I couldn't have wrote that. Like, so I appreciate him on that level 100%. And
I think more people can write that than think they can write that. I don't mean we could write Dogma or anything, but I think that the more I learn
Yeah.
about what screenwriters do, I love Jordan Peele's approach. He's like, I basically just like shove a whole bunch of crap into the thing, and then I slowly like clay whittle it away until I find what I'm looking for.
So it is.
And
That's what like
love it.
one of my screenwriting instructors first told us was like, you can't be afraid to write shit. Like you got to write your turd, draft basically, and just get
Write
that
your
out of the
shit
way.
demons
And then
and get it
yeah,
out.
exactly.
Janine, I was literally
right.
thinking that, like, right?
Pretty much.
Like facts.
And spraying it down.
Because because it's true, because I've written like stories. I like to write like fan fiction, and then I'm starting to like write other like original stuff. But like I love to write stories. I went back to like one of my first stories, and I was like, oh buddy, that was trash. Oh wait, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why did I think this was something great compared to like something I've recently written that has more thought, is more visual, it has to like, so you'll see like your growth in between that. So yeah, I love that you can see his growth as a writer, even as a performer, because I know he pops up in his films, but like you can see even his growth as an actor,
well, even just his pantomiming like gets stronger.
Yeah,
even in this one
right.
where he's like and then hits him with the club, I'm like, dude, that was great. Or the eye argument with Persephone, like he's just back and forth eye argument, like dude's got an expressive face.
Kevin Smith can say a lot without saying anything.
And he talks a lot of shit about his acting, and I'm sorry, Kevin, you didn't go act in other films because you sucked at it. I'll just put that out there.
Fair enough.
Just saying.
Fair enough.
Sure. If you sucked, nobody would have had you in their movies. They would have been like, you stay directing. So
no, for sure.
And I love him in Live Free or Die Hard. He's like the good part of that movie.
Yeah.
Long live the Warlock.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Or as we'll probably discuss a little bit more next week, Scream 3, where him and Jay both show up, and and apparently without that we wouldn't get a Jay and Silent Bob, so a movie, I should say. All right. Maybe we should vote on our viewing, our ideas of what we think of rate. I was just going to find every word except the right word. Why don't we go ahead and rate the films, and then we can talk about next week. And let's go in the same order, although now I have to remember who. Janine started. That's right.
This is my favorite Kevin Smith movie, so I'm saying 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. Will Wilkins.
It's a 10 out of 10. Sorry, I always wanted
come
to
on,
say
sing
that.
it.
Sang it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Lala.
Solid film. Solid film.
Right.
Not to copy off of Will, but to copy off of Will. This is one of my favorite Kevin Smith films of all time, and it's a 10 for me. And I don't give 10s lightly. This is a 10.
But you didn't sing it.
Oh, it is a 10.
Dude, that's so much better.
That was very John Ralphie from Parks and Rec.
Oh yeah.
Don't be suspicious.
The worst. Even though I've never seen that show ever in my life.
Oh, what? Oh, you're missing out.
Man,
like Jenny Slate and
everybody keeps telling me. I tried to watch it, but everybody keeps telling me I have to get past the first.
Just start at season 2 and you'll watch season 1 later.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Sir, Snitty, I can't do that. I
you have
physically
like
can't do
if
that.
you want to like that show, skip season 1.
I physically
They
can't.
had no idea what they were
here's
doing.
what you do. You put season 1 on as you're going to sleep. It'll play
you go.
through. Technically,
by the time you wake
were
up,
there for
You'll
all of it.
absorb it somehow. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
There
put
is
on
story there. I'm not
osmosis.
saying don't watch it because there is story
Right.
there. You get the element of why they start the park in the first place,
Mhm.
but that's really it. It's like a relationship and why
Yeah.
they're doing what they're doing, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you get from
Yeah.
season 1.
My plan is
and a
to
few bits.
try. My plan is to try again
it's good. It's really
when I
good.
have time because I've
Yeah, I
seen
love it.
so many memes. People reference it. I even say, "What is it? Treat Yourself." Is that the same show?
Yes,
Something like that?
yes, treat
Treat
yourself.
Yourself. I even
Uh-huh.
say "Treat Yourself," and I ain't never
Right.
seen an episode, but
That's
I've seen like
funny.
clips of like
Yeah.
Greta, doing
Yeah.
that. So it's just
Oh, she was
Valentine's
brilliant on
Day
that
came
show.
out of
Yeah.
that show. Yeah.
come
Yes,
on, Valentine's.
Galentine. Yeah,
Valentine.
it's. I know this is so
Yes.
aside, but there's so many people that are you're like watch now. You're like, oh wow, I can't believe. Rob Lowe in that show is
Oh man.
phenomenal.
He's great,
Like
yeah.
that might be my favorite role of his ever in the
Yeah, yeah.
existence of ever.
He's-
And
he's
then
great
Adam
as
Scott
well.
is phenomenal in
Yeah.
that show
I
as
love
well.
Yeah.
love Adam Scott.
Oh,
Ooh.
Cones
Oh, this is
Dunshire.
like peak.
Party
Or
Down is
I mean, literally
amazing.
every. I'm thinking Ron Swanson. So Nick,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick
Offerman.
Offerman.
Nick
Thank you. I was thinking
Offerman,
all are
yeah.
fantastic.
Plus,
Um,
the characters that come in and out. Catherine Hahn.
Oh my
strong
God. Oh
character
yes.
comes
Oh my
in and out
God.
of this
Oh
show.
yeah.
right?
Poncho. Yeah, yeah.
You even get Paul Rudd shows up and plays
Yes.
the
Oh my
dumbest
God,
yes.
person in the
Oh,
history
such a dumb
of
dumb.
history.
Yeah.
Nice.
So dumb. So just please, yes. Anybody who
So
hasn't,
I'll
and
let
please
you-
law,
yeah,
please
yeah,
check it
yeah.
out.
I'll let you know when I partake again when I try
Yeah.
to.
Sam Elliott.
Love
shows
it.
up, too.
Ooh, Sam Elliott, yeah.
So
Yeah,
Brian,
yeah.
you were gonna rate Dogma.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
Oh yeah, it
forget.
was.
I have to follow Janine.
I was about to say he's gonna copy off
As
of Janine. I
usual.
already know.
Yeah.
I already
yeah.
knew.
9.
9. 9 out of 10. All right.
I mean, we
I've
both
seen
even saw the
this-
same movie, like,
Right?
not together, but
Yeah.
The same day. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna give this one a 10 as well. I think this is peak Smith. This is a phenomenal film. Yeah, and I
Yes, they
agree.
do. It does.
Somebody said that his eyebrows could win an Oscar. I think that's absolutely
They
true.
definitely can. I agree.
Yeah. Biggie
That
showed
should
up.
be a
Hello,
new
Biggie.
category.
Hey, Biggie.
Hi,
And thank you, Z, for being here
Biggie.
all night. Taylor, Lord Blood Sith, thank you for showing up, everybody. We appreciate you guys being here.
Yes.
We will be
I'm
back
afraid of
next
you.
week with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and Zach and Miri Make a Porno. Unless you were working at Hollywood Video when that came out, and then it was just called Zach and Miri because they wouldn't put the
That's
porno
funny.
part
Yeah,
on
they
the cover.
wouldn't put the they wouldn't
Right?
put that down there.
Yeah, I was mad
Oh,
because
no.
I was working there. I was like, this is so stupid.
Well, it's gonna be interesting trying to promote next week's show.
I just say
Yeah.
Zach and Miri because I have no
Zach and
choice.
Miri,
I-
Yeah,
That's all you
that's
can
right.
do.
Might as well.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
Yeah,
I could just say
that's
Zach and
good.
Miri make, but then people are like, what, bread? Like,
What?
Make
are they
what?
making?
Decision.
Um,
They
What
love
do they
sourdough. Love
Right?
sourdough.
Yeah.
Big on
Yes.
sourdough. They've got their starter
I'm more of a,
going.
I'm more of a
like, yeah.
rye bread myself,
Rye
just
bread?
like-
Good
Fair
choice.
enough.
good choice.
Pasta.
Controversial.
So yeah, we got those two movies. We will be getting back to the fact that we are going to be doing a giveaway, but we're going to have to kind of change this up. So next week we'll have announcements on how that all goes. Other than that, thank you, Will Wilkins, for being here. We appreciate
Thank
you being
you,
Yeah,
here.
thanks, buddy.
Will.
Good to see you
Thank
again.
Thank you guys.
I don't
Of
know
course.
if it was said before when I wasn't here, but please make sure you go follow us on all social media platforms, all podcast platforms. We are also on Letterboxd. We are in Discord. Come join in, become a real student, and we also all have our own social media accounts that we are on, and we do things on, and we do our own reviews and things. So make sure you follow everyone here. And thanks for joining us, everybody. I just want to make sure that was out there. Hit like, subscribe, hit the bell. Make sure you get our notifications. Share us out with everybody. It really, those are free ways to help. But if you do want to donate as well, we have that capability.
There are also highways to help.
Haha.
I'm so
I
sorry.
love that. Tyler
highways
would
to
have been
help.
proud.
Highways to help. Yeah, Tyler, we don't have our
Tyler
puns, so I'm
would
trying my
have
best. I'm
appreciated
doing
it.
what I
I'm
can.
just saying.
So do check us out on all those platforms, as Law has said, and we shall see you guys on episode 9. Will be back next week as well.
Say that
so-
5 times real fast.
Yeah,
Will Wilkins
messed
be
me up.
back. Yes.
Will Wilkins be back? Yes, he will.
Mhm.
Yes.
Technically,
night,
he
all.
is Will.
Yes, Will
Swear.
Will.
Will. Yes,
Right?
Will.